guys, how you going? So today on BKRsport, we're back here to absolutely crush down another season review, baby. We're going through every single team in the NRL and giving you their positives, their negatives. We're going through their draw, their signings and contract situation. We're going through the ups and we're going through the downs. I'll give you my criticism and potential, concerns going into next year, but also say where they went right this year, what they did good and what they did poorly, right? Because every team does have their negatives regardless. Even the team in first position definitely still had their negatives this year, but they just had less negatives than everybody else because obviously that's why they came first. But as you guys know, we've absolutely crushed down through 17 teams. No, we haven't done 17 teams so far. We are doing all 17 teams, but we've already done the Tigers, the Rabbitohs, the Eels, the Titans, the Warriors, the Broncos, the Dragons, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Knights, and also the Bulldoggy Doggy Wolf Wolf, the Canterbury Bulldogs. So if you have not gone and watched all those season reviews yet, then you can feel free to jump on back there, give it a listen, and also check it out after you watch this one here of the North Queensland Cowboys. Yes, the team that got through to the semi-finals, they had a better than you would think season, I would say. They definitely were very good in parts and quite poor in other parts. They were a mixed season, but it was better than last year. I know they had that absolutely unbelievable season in 2022 compared to the 2021, but it seems like the Cowboys are very up and down. They've fluctuated a lot, and that comes down to, you also look here, which we'll get into in a second, but they score a lot of points. They can't necessarily defend a lot of points, however, and that's their biggest issue that will obviously be spoken about today. But to go directly on the ladder here, like 5th position, I think all Cowboys fans would be happy with this. Now, obviously, the Sharkies, the team that did come in 4th position, were the team to knock them out in the end. They were the team that did the job over the top of them in the elimination final, and convincingly too. I know the second half, the Cowboys were trying to come back and whatnot, but they were down 24-0 in the first half to a Cronulla team that hadn't won a finals game since 2018. So very impressive there for Cronulla, and obviously their season review hasn't come out yet, but then again, this is coming out the week after the preliminary finals. I'm filming this just after the Cowboys have just lost the day after, so I don't know about how the preliminary finals go just yet. All I know is that the Cowboys are Gornsky, and it was a heartbreaking one for them because they did have high hopes based on the fact that they did have a really good attack with them, and again, comparatively to last year. Now, obviously in 2024, they had 36 points from 15 wins and 9 losses, which is significantly above, like it's only 3 wins above this 8-9 battle there with the Knights, Raiders, Dolphins, Dragons, and whatnot. However, it was significantly above. In the context of what we watched this year, the Cowboys were very clearly above these teams down here. And I did lay out and I did say that whoever came 8th was always going to get beaten in the first round. And the reason why this is relevant, because obviously the Cowboys played the Knights in that first week of the finals. And it did clearly show that the Cowboys just were that little bit better, despite the fact they didn't look great in the first half there and came back home strong in the second half. So maybe we're starting to click on here. The Cowboys are not exactly a great first half team. They just know how to come home strongly. But 15 wins and 9 losses is something that they would really appreciate. And the reason being is you go back here to 2023 for the Cowboys. After 27 rounds, the Cowboys finished in 11th place with 12 wins and 12 losses. So they've improved their season by 3 wins, which obviously takes them all the way from 11th to a competitive team around the top 4 for 2024. But this is also a significant drop-off in that 12 wins and 12 losses from 2022 when they finished in 3rd place with 17 wins and 7 losses. So you're seeing the fluctuations happen quite drastically here. You're seeing that when they're on, gee whiz, they're on. But when they're off, they can significantly struggle. And I'd say that this year, 2024, was more of a balanced year in regards to that. That's why you're seeing them in that 5th area. They've got the upside, but they're still quite balanced. They do have their negatives still. But then, 17 wins and 7 losses there in 2022, which got them to the preliminary final. 2021, they're all the way down here. 7 wins and 17 losses. So look at the drastic rise there. The drastic rise from 2021 to 2022, 7 wins, 17 losses, to 17 wins and 7 losses, to then 2023, 12 wins, 12 losses, to this year, 15 wins and 9 losses, I think it was. Correct? Just to clarify here, 2024... after round 27, because that always goes back to the Dolphins and whatnot. But 15 wins and 9 losses. And just for thought process here, I want to see how 2020 went. Because I'm pretty certain they were pretty poor then as well. Yeah, they were. So 5 wins and 15 losses. So at least they improved from 2020 to 2021, and then drastically improved to 2022, and then pretty significantly regressed in 2023, and then obviously improved again in 2024. So it is a really difficult read here. That was obviously a shortened season 2 and round for 20 rounds in the COVID affected year of 2020. But with that being said, This is, I've got to go, now it's around 20 because of that. This is really, really impressive here. It is really, really impressive because they are able to ignore having a bad year and bounce back. And that's what you look at there. You say, yes, the fluctuations and the changes are significant, which doesn't give you a whole lot of sense of belief for next year. I think that right now, and we'll talk about the future in a second, but from this, it shows that even if you do have a poor year, the next year probably should be good. You obviously want more of a consistency ranking. You still want to be, constantly in the top 8, constantly pushing and constantly competing, constantly part of the conversation, which you are. Like 11th position last year was still a part of the conversation because you still had a chance at that 8. Obviously, you didn't make it. The only time when you're not a part of the conversation is when you're down here in this bottom 4 area, right? So the Cowboys should be still happy with this year, should be very happy, but on the trajectory of the up and down nature that North Queensland do possess, next year it does seem like they could drop off. Does that happen? Not necessarily. But I'm just saying based on that trajectory, yeah? Now you go here, and this is the big point of emphasis on the Cowboys season. They scored 657 points this year. 657 points. That is a lot of points. The only team that beat them out, there's actually only 2 teams that beat them out attacking-wise. The Melbourne Storm on 692, which wasn't spoken about enough, to be completely honest with you. No one really spoke about how heavy their attack was. Everyone was talking about the Cowboys and how good their attack was, but the Roosters 738 and the Storm 692 were the only 2 teams that beat them out. Now, you do have to also give credit to the Sharks here, who didn't get spoken about in regards to their attack either. They scored 653, which is only 4 points short of the Cowboys. And that's why I knew that when they got to that game against the Sharks, the Cowboys defensively, which we'll speak about, weren't on the same marker, but also attacking-wise, they were exactly on the same marker effectively. So although the Sharks had that prehistory of not being great in finals, and also, throwing away great opportunities for them, when you look at it coming into the game, there is a clear difference here. Right, but the Cowboys attack, you've got to be really impressed with that. They were 3rd best in the entire competition, only behind 2 teams in the top 4. And if you want to say that these guys are effectively above them there, they're not, but it's only 4 points difference. Then the only teams that finished above them, attacking-wise, were obviously the top 4 there. So really good stuff there from the Cowboys. It means that they're flowing, they're creative, they know what they're doing, but they just need that better defensive structure, because then you go and have a look here at 568, and that is clearly, definitively, the worst defense in the top 8. 449, 394, 463, 431, all of these are over 100, some of them nearly 150. 433, that's that 140 odd difference there. Manly was still 50 points below them in regards to defense conceded, and that was clearly the second worst. And the Knights, who obviously could not score this year but could defend, they were a good old 50 odd points as well, above 50 to 60 odd points as well, above the Cowboys in regards to defense. So that is really, really rough. You do go into the bottom 8 as well to really ride this home. 568 is worse than the... Okay, so no. No, it's actually a bit benefit. You're on a similar marker, though, to the Dolphins, and you're on a similar marker here to the Warriors, but you still did obviously have a better defense than, all these teams here. Obviously, the bottom 4. If you had a worse defense in the bottom 4, there's an issue. But you still did have a better defense than most of these guys down here. Actually, all of these guys down here. It's just obviously you're on a similar area to where the Dolphins were and to where the Warriors were. So that's all well and good, though. Like, you look at that, you go, cool, we beat them on defense. Great, that's fantastic. But the reason why you got hounded so much is because of how drastic this was, and also because you are a top 5 team. So you are going to be looked at more, you're going to be scrutinised a lot more than those teams down there, especially when you have your aspirations of winning a premiership. So this drastic difference here is the telltale sign of what the Cowboys were. It showed that they definitely are good enough to be a top 8 team. They definitely do have the attack to absolutely break you open. But their defense, when it comes up against these good teams here, just does not compare. It does not compare. Like, to the first place Panthers on defense, 394, that is like 170 points less that they conceded. Now, I want to see, so 568 here, in 2023, what did the Cowboys give up? In 2023, they gave up 542. So your defense was worse this year as a top 5 team than you were in 11th place last year with 542 by about 26 odd, right? And in 2022, when you had that really good year, You only conceded 361 points through 2 less games, but that's still only around that 400 mark. You're still looking at that 400 mark here. It's crazy through, 700. That's fantastic. That's wild there from the Warriors. But 361 points in just the 2 less games is a significant switch to 2023. Go to round 27, where 542, and then even worse in 2024, which was the 568. And just for another thought process here in regards to 2022 with their the 2021 season, when I've gone back to 2013, their 2021 season, which they obviously finished in 15th, they gave up 748 points, which was the worst defense in the league that year. That's only 80 odd difference to that's about 180 odd difference. So that's okay. That's fine. This is just awful. The switch from 748 to 2022 through the same amount of rounds of 361 is like dogs of last year to this year territory. So that's a really big switch. But the point is that last year and the year before, your defense was better than this. By a significant amount in 2022, they were 2 spots above. And last year by about 26 odd points, where they were 6 spots below them. So that is a significant issue. And it's not like I'm telling you something that you don't know, but the whole point of these season reviews are to go over what we've seen this year and to go over and dictate what went wrong for them and why they didn't win the premiership. And that is the key reason, because that is premiership caliber. Comparatively to the Dogs here, where that is premiership caliber and that is not good enough. So these two teams who finished right next to each other were very similar for the opposite reasons. No attack, fantastic defense. Fantastic attack, no defense. If you give the Cowboys this defense from the Dogs, they probably go on to win the comp. If you give the Dogs this attack, the Dogs probably go on to win the comp. So that's just a little bit of a thought process there to have in regards to those two teams. And they have had very similar fluctuations. Dogs only last year to this year. Obviously, the Cowboys, they are on a similar path that you've seen from the Warriors of 2022 to 2023 to this year. Very similar there. You've also got the Manly Sea Eagles, who have been up and down, but they had 2021. The Broncos, similar-ish with their recent years as well. And yeah, I think the Cowboys, this is just what they need to knuckle down on, because again, this is absolutely premiership caliber, and we know that, we've seen that, yeah? So let's go into their draw. Again, we know this, they come home like a train outside of that game here, and they also came home like a train in that game, but let's go back to the beginning part of the season, and let's roll through this, all right? So the starting first 5 games, what you've probably noticed through all these season reviews so far is that if you do not start off at least 2 from your first 5, as in 2 and 3, at minimum, your season's pretty much done. If you only win 1, or you don't win any at all, i.e. my Gold Coast Titans, obviously, then you're not going to be making the 8, and you're not a competitive team. You need to win at very minimum 2 of your first 5. All right, so the Cowboys, they go and win 43-18 over the Dolphins. Great win there. Then they go and beat the Knights 21-20. You love that. Then they go and smack up the Dragons 46-24. Then they go and they lose by a significant margin here to the Brisbane Broncos 38-12, their biggest rivals. And then you've got, obviously, the Gold Coast Titans here, which you're expected to beat 35-22. So in your first 5 games, you went 4-1. You were 4-1. You could score points here, 43. You could, 21 still a good amount of points. 46 is a massive amount of points. Obviously, you lost this game. We'll get into that. And then 35 points here. So through your first 5 games of this season, you go to the ladder after round 5. The Cowboys were in second position. 4 wins, 1 loss. Obviously, you're actually kind of in first position because the Dolphins have had a bye at this point. They have had a bye, so you're actually arguably in first. But you're already seeing right now, from 5 rounds, 157 points, which is the best attack in the league, but you had the worst defense in the league as well. So although you're in first position, which is absolutely unbelievable, the comparison here is crazy of a 35. When you're on 157, you shouldn't be giving up 122, which means that your points differential, despite having, despite basically being in first, I don't know why I started there a little bit, but despite being in first, you're behind the Raiders points differential, behind the Warriors, you're also behind the Dolphins, and that's crazy to see the Raiders on 47, by the way. But then again, they play the Tigers and whatnot. And you're on the same marker as the Roosters down here, who obviously do explode in regards to that matter. So you can already tell your season from that you are giving up 24 points to a Dragons team that was mediocre but had upside, 18 points to a Dolphins team that was also a very similar team to the Dragons this year, but had a lot more upside in regards to its attack. 20 points to the Knights. They're the second worst attacking team in the comp. You look back at this in hindsight, but obviously hindsight is only something we can look at now, not at the time. That wasn't fantastic, but at least you took the win there. 38 points to the Broncos. At the time, they were a different team. With that being said, though, hindsight, not a great loss there. And then giving up 22 points to the Titans. This game, the Titans were actually well and truly in this game until I think AJ threw an intercept to Kyle Felt. The Titans hadn't won a game at this point. They don't win a game until like round 8 here when it's in New Zealand on Anzac Day. So this is not fantastic. But with that being said, they still won 13 plus. So you can't complain about how much they win by and how much if they win. If they win, then it's whatever. You've won 4 from your first 5 games. That's brilliant. So your mid-season is what I'm starting to think is your biggest problem in this game, because this is a great start. Despite the fact that you give up a lot of points, it's a great start. You're still scoring a whole heap. So let's now move into the next few rounds. You lose 27-20 to the Eels. I think at this point we started to realise the Eels were pretty good at this point. They just started the season quite well. But 27-20 to the Eels there. 42-6 to the Sharks. 26-20 to the Panthers. 28-26 to the Dolphins. 20-18 to the Titans. So your first 5 games, you went 4-1, and then your next 5 games, you went 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, 0-5. You lost 5 straight games after starting the season, 4-1, to a team in the Titans that, yes, they won a game a couple of weeks ago, weren't good at the time, and you could argue still just isn't that great. They're in 4th last, and attacking and defensive stats, 4th last. This one was odd considering that you absolutely flogged them here to start the season. This is relatively understandable. But you wouldn't... Like, 42-6 is showing, again, the defense isn't there. You look at all these points you're giving up. 27 to a team that came 3rd last and potentially had a chance for a spoon there. 42 here. 26 here. 28 there. And then 20 here. And the only reason this was actually close because the Titans actually lost like 5 players in the last 20 minutes to injury. And the Cowboys came running home like a train. So this 5-game stretch here is really what hounded home that defensive liability of the Cowboys. And after starting in 2nd and arguably being 1st, obviously with that bye, round 10, they drop all the way down to 12th place. That stretch is brutal. And now there are minus 18 points differential with the 265 points given up. Still, second worst defense in the league behind the Rabbitohs there in last place at the time. But still, second worst defense in the league with the 247 being behind the Roosters, the Broncos, Manly. And that's it. Yeah. So this is the whole emphasis on this season. The whole emphasis. So being 4-1 and being arguably, debatably in 1st place with that bye, the Cowboys then went to and proceeded to lose 5 games straight with a couple of games. This is an understandable one. You don't look too heavily at that. And this is just a polar opposite result to what we saw when you played at KO Stadium, I think it was. No, Suncorp Stadium. That's just a polar opposite result to what happened there. So that stretch there really defined kind of where the Cowboys were at. Now, after that, they obviously wake up a little bit after this one, which was an embarrassing loss for them. They nearly snuck it in the end. They did. They nearly snuck it in the end. But you get to round 11. They beat the Rabbitohs. Expected. They beat the Tigers by a lot. Expected. But what do we notice here? 28 points to the worst attack in the comp. Let's go to round 27. They scored 463. I know it's only 7 above the Knights there, but 463. But a big marker of that comes down to games like that, where they flogged the Raiders and they, didn't get flogged by the Cowboys. Well, got flogged attacking wise and defensively for the Tigers, but were able to put some points on the board, which the Cowboys, if you think you're a genuinely competitive team, you've got to win this game, which is what the Raiders didn't do. You've got to win this game, which is great, but you can't be giving up 28 points there to the West Tigers if you think you're a genuine, serious, competitive team. And then we get to round 13. This is a good win. That's a really good win. So at least it's a 3 in a row. You lose to the Warriors by conceding 42 points for a team that came 5th last. and then you obviously beat the Raiders well going into the bye. Your season is clumps. There is just clumps. First 5, fantastic. Next 5, awful. And then this is a pretty good stretch where at least you're winning. Again, 22 points, 28 points. 16 points is good against the Roosters especially, the best attacker team in the comp this year. 42 against the Wars and 16 against the Raiders. That's getting up there, the 16, but 42 is obviously horrific. 28 to the Tigers is horrific, and 22 to the second last place Rabbitohs is also quite horrific. And they were already in a stage where we knew the Rabbitohs were going to be poor this year at that point. So this is a better stretch. It's a better stretch, but also not the greatest. So you've had fantastic, then you've fluctuated to awful, and then you've gone to that flatline middle ground of this being good and you're getting results. You're putting yourself back up there. And then you get into the bye. So let's go after round 16, because we will include your bye here. So after 5 rounds, you were arguably first. After 10 rounds, you were down there in 12th. And then after 16 rounds, which included the bye, you were back up at the top 8 with 8 wins and 7 losses. But again, 381 attack, 389, you're still against. Despite scoring the third best behind the Storm and the Sharks, which makes... No, not the Sharks, sorry, the Storm and the Roosters, which is the only 2 teams that beat you this year. Besides that, like that 389, is there worse? Yeah, there's a few worse. There's the Rabbitohs and there's also the Eels. But the Tigers had a better defense than you at that point. The Tigers had a better defense. Even the Titans had a better defense at that point. You know, that's crazy stuff. That's crazy stuff. The fluctuations are just insanity here. So after round 16, this is a good win. I don't know if the Panthers played their full team, but actually I want to quickly have a look at this to see context. Brad Schneider, I can already see, is the try scorer there, so that's not a good sign there for the Panthers. Dane Lowry, fullback. This is Origin. Yeah, Jack Cole, Brad Schneider. Yeah, this is Origin. No Liam Martin. Is Io's there, though? Which is interesting. Must have been the game after Origin. They must have just decided to play as Io. But with that being said as well, he is on the bench. He is on the bench. I think this must have been just after Origin. So, context, it's like you win the game, great. You love that, but also context is needed. The Panthers had a lot of plays out for Origin. So the Cowboys would have too, though. So we'll give you that credit. But it's B-grade team versus B-grade team in that regard. So I should have actually said that as well. That the Cowboys also... I'm going to turn this fan on. It's actually quite hot. The context of that game is that whoever won, it's a bit of a whatever. Even the Panthers won. Losing to Manly here is rough, but at least they're in a similar position to you when you get to round 27. They obviously finish in 7th, not too far behind the Cowboys there. You give them that draw into a win. I know you can also give it to a loss, but give them the draw for a win. They're only 2 points short of you, 1 less win, right? And they're a very similar team, but their defense is a little bit better, but a very similar team in regards to great attack. Defense is a bit how you going. Very similar team in that marker there. Probably the most comparable team to the Cowboys this year. You go into this one, this is a huge win. This is a massive win. Massive win. You've really got to appreciate that. I reckon, let's go... So I gave you that. Then there's this 2-game stretch, which is a bit how you go on, plus the bye. And then you kind of go on a run here besides this. But you still get 30 points again to the Tigers. What's happening there? You know what? Yeah, we'll go to round 19. We'll say in round 19. So you were in 8th, and then in round 19, you went to... you stayed in 8th after 3 rounds. After winning 1, getting a bye, and also losing 1. So, flatline there. At least you've improved to +1 on the points differential. At least you haven't given up as many points in that little stretch there. And you're 417 to 416. But then you go on this huge run here where you beat the Bulldogs. That's a great win. The Dogs are a very good team this year. This is a big win too. The Sharks weren't great at this point. This was around their struggle part of the season. Still gave 22 points to them. But on context, obviously, at least you got that W there against a really good team in the top 4 that were struggling, but still on table matters. And they were a top 4 team and were the ones who actually ended your season. 48-30, this is not a great result, but at least you got the win. You take the win, but 30 points to the Tigers is horrific. You lose 42-18 to the Broncos, which I don't know why the Broncos absolutely had your number this year. 38-12, and then down here you lose to a team that was like dead and buried realistically, 42-18. I think they were coming off the back of that horrific loss to the Titans at that point. So that was really, really confusing there. But overall, you know, you lose that game, and then you go and smack the Rays 42-4, and you go into the bye here with 2 rounds to go, and we'll leave that for the time being. So then, from 8th position there, after round 19, in round 25, You've solidified yourself in the top 8. You have 32 points that went over the Broncos. You're back above the mark with the attack and the defense equaling out to 43. So you take that. You're 13 wins and 9. And like I said, you're more confident, and you're pretty confident in making a home final, right? You're pretty confident in at least that you're going to make the finals, unless there was an absolute... No, you couldn't lose it now because you're on 32 points. And the teams down here were 3 wins out of it, and there's only 2 games to go. So that's a good little stretch. That's a massive stretch there. A huge stretch. Again, don't concede 48 points there. But again, look at this. You know, in these 3 games here, 18 is getting up there, but I usually like to look at the 20 marker. 22, 30, 42. So in that 3-game stretch, you give up 52, 94 points in 3 games. 94 points in 3 games. That's not great. But again, at least you're winning the games. But it does show that when you get to the finals, it's going to be a heavy struggle because you're coming up against these good teams. And yes, you beat them. And yes, you beat them, who were top 8 teams. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. And then we go down. This is probably going to be a longer one, to be fair. And then we go down into the last 2 rounds. You know, we'll even go into the finals. You get into the finals with a huge win over there against the Storm, 38-30, but the Storm rested all their players and you still gave up 30 points. That was a big telltale. And then obviously this game here was a huge win against the Dogs. You needed that one, and there was no excuses realistically for the Dogs. A couple players here and there, but they shouldn't be losing by that much. But it was the week after Manly put the sword through them. So this game here was a little bit of a red herring. It provided you false hope in regards to beating the Storm by 8 points and scoring 38. The Storm had a whole reserve grade team in, as you guys know. But at least you get to the finals. You play the Knights. You struggled first half. You came home strongly in the second half. Well done. That's great. You love that. But if you struggled first half against the Knights, you're going to struggle first half against the Sharks. The Sharks are a better attacking team. They were the 4th best attacking team in the competition this year, with the 3rd or 2nd best defense in the competition, whilst you had the 3rd best attack, but also like a bottom 9 or 8th position defense. So this score made sense. Now the Cowboys came home strongly again, but you can't let up 24-0 in the first half, and that penalty was so crucial while they were going for that short kickoff and short dropout and whatnot. So overall, you look throughout this season, this was understandable. That's why I tipped the Sharks. I know people wanted to say the Cowboys, but that's why I tipped the Sharks, because of the fact that the Sharks did have better statistics throughout, besides their finals history. But coming into this season, it's clumps of really good, very mediocre, and also awful. However, great attack, horrible defense. Because even 16 points is still a decent bit to give up there. But this game is huge. 30 points to a reserve grade Storm team when you had your full team in was massive. So that's what I would say about the draw there, man. That's what I would say about the draw. If you disagree with what I've said, then please let me know in the comment section. But that's what I would say about the draw. Clumps of everything. Just fluctuations. Fantastic, awful, and mediocre. That's what the Cowboys did this year. Now, quickly, let's get into the trackers here, because I think I've already been going for about half an hour here. I'd like to keep this around 40 minutes, but then again, if I have to talk, I have to talk. Cowboys contract situation. Helam Lukey. Wow, that's a long contract. That is a long contract at 2029. There is a lot of fluctuations even here in the contracts here. So your long-term contract, Tommy Dearden, you obviously love that. That's huge. That's huge. Let's have a look and see if there's that many player options or options. So club option there for Harrison Edwards. You've got Thomas McKaylee with a club option, and that's it. They're the only options. That's a pretty good sign. It's a pretty good sign that you're not giving away player options like the Eels with their best players like the Titans have, but has relatively been resolved. At least you're not at the hands of the players' decision-making there, and you've actually gone club option. Harrison Edwards, not a massive star, but then also Thomas McKaylee, also not a massive star, but you see how it goes for the next couple of years. A couple of guys getting on here. Chad Townsend obviously going to the Roosters. Jake Granville, I think he's retiring. Jordan Clean, I'm not too sure if they keep him around. I'm not too sure. By the way, guys, NRL.com, I don't know if this has been updated or not. I can only go via what I see here, right? So what I see here is what I say. If there's something that you can see that isn't right, please let us know in the comment section. Finifi Wiaki, I think he's off the Dolphins. Kyle Felt, he's retiring. He's going to Super League, I think it was. And then Val Holmes off the Dragons. So a couple of big changes here, the Cows. Big old changes, because they have used Chad Townsend for the last few years. But there does seem to be a slight change of direction here from the Cowboys in regards to some really key players, which will be really interesting to see this off-season, and then definitely next off-season, to be fair. But these all suggest that there definitely should be changes incoming. These all suggest ending this year that there should be changes incoming here. Big old changes incoming. Unless they're really going for the development, which we'll talk about in a second. And then they've got a couple of here. 2027 for Cohen Hess is interesting. That's interesting. Cliff at 2025, I do think that you need to look towards probably a different halfback. Maybe Tommy Dearden into the 7 and then somebody else in the 6. I'm not too sure. This is fine. We all know about this one. The longevity there. Nene is great. Murray Talangi for a couple of years. You don't have to think about that yet. Obviously, you'll resign him, but just not yet, obviously. Ruben Cotter, fantastic at 2028. Scott Drinkwater, that's great to have him locked down. Overall, you're in a decent enough situation. Sam McIntyre 2026. You're in a decent enough situation here where you don't have a great deal to worry about in regards to some big name players, but also there is a lot of room to change based off of the short-term nature of a lot of these contracts. Even 2025 is short-term. Harrison Edwards, that's a club option, so that's their choice still. You know, John McLean. You've got Racy Robson here, 2025. You've got Robert Derby. You've got Valame and Thomas Duffy. Like I said, Tom Chester, William Vailea, Zach Labour. There's a lot of room to change now. So Todd Payton for the Cowboys needs to realise and recognise exactly what he wants and exactly how he wants to go forward, because now is the decision to change these little play pieces. Again, you've got your big time forward here. You've got your one of your big time forwards as well, who's an Origin and international. You've got an international winger here as well, locked down. You've got the State of Origin Australian international. Well, I don't think Tommy Dearden's played Australia yet, but he will. You've got Scott Drinkwater, your fullback. You've got some big players locked down long term that you don't have to think about now. But again, a lot of room to change. A lot of room to change over now or next year. So Cowboys, you might be in for quite a fun year with that contract situation. And I mean, like, in a good way, you know, like getting new players is always fun to see if they work out. Now, development list-wise, Amali Bitongane, top 2025, Jai Hansen, Jamal Shibasaki, Dodethi, Baker Teraha, and Caden Lares. I've heard nothing about any of these guys. I know Gehemar Shibasaki, I don't know Jamal Shibasaki, I don't know anything about any of these guys. I've heard absolutely nothing about literally any of them. I actually haven't even seen their names before. So that means that the Cowboys fans aren't telling everybody about it and demanding everyone to respect their development of the youth coming through the system, and there's not exactly a great deal of belief from people who do keep a clear eye on development lists and whatnot. So I would say, based off of my perspective, again, I don't know jack shit about this development list specifically, because a lot of the time for other teams, I will hear what the club has to say, the fans have to say, and then what pieces are being picked up from other clubs, and there's just nothing about these guys. So I'm going to put that on the lower end of the development. I'll put that on the lower end of the development, but that is completely down to your own research. Please go and have a look at it. Now, coming into this year, there was a couple of huge changes here, right? So 2024 gains, William Vailea from the Warriors, Thomas McKellar from the Warrington Wolves, Harrison Edwards from the Bulldogs, and Braden Burns from the Rabbitohs New South Wales Cup. There's nothing that lights the world on fire there. William Vailea was given the go-ahead to be one of their main guys this year, which was great to see. William Vailea was fine. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a fine signing. McKaylee's been in and out, shaking it all about. Came across in Warrington, played one game, I think, for the Titans. Hasn't really lit the world on fire. Harrison Edwards, okay, and Braden Burns, a bit of whatever. This is completely okay. It's nothing spectacular, but at least a couple of the guys here did get some good minutes here, and Harrison Edwards is occasionally there, but they did get some good minutes, mainly, though, William Vailea. So it's okay. It's not unbelievable, it's okay. And then the 2024 losses, James Tarmo retired, Peter Hiku to the Hull, Mitch Dunn retired, Ben Hampton unsigned, that's just skipped down, Brendan Elliott unsigned, Riley Price to the Panthers, Gehemar Shibasaki to Townsville Blackhawks, Jake Burke to the Townsville Blackhawks, Taniela Sandrungu to the Brive Rugby, Luciano Leilua to the Dragons, and Jack Kasiewski to the Broncos. There's nothing wrong with any of this, man. It was time for Peter Hiku to go. James Tarmo obviously retired. There's nobody else there. Luciano Leilua, it was time for him to go. He went to the Dragons. He's fine. It's not a big loss there for the Cows. So overall, I'm happy with this. I think this is fine. This is completely fine. It's the losses actually assist their team, in my opinion, more than the gains, even though William Vailea did play a big part of their season. But I think their losses are completely fine. So I've got no problem with their recruitment and their distribution from 2024 to 2025. And then in regards to 2025 gains for next year so far, based off of what NRL.com has, Carl Lawton from Manly and Kai O'Donnell. Oh, jeez, I hate those ads, man. Kai O'Donnell from the Lead Leopards in Super League. And then the losses are Kulukefu, Finifiwiaki to the Dolphins, Chad Townsend to the Roosters, and Jake Granville, TBC. Might be retiring, I'm not too sure. Carl Lawton's fine. It's okay. I think this could be a tough worker that the Cowboys are trying to deliver as a play style. I think the Cowboys are trying to really go down a more attacking Canberra Raiders style, or a more attacking Newcastle Knights style, is what I would say the Cowboys are looking like realistically, in the way that Todd Payton wants them to play. Kai O'Donnell, I have heard this name before. Don't know a great deal about the Super League, but we'll wait and see on that one. So I think this is okay. I think this is fine. I think it's got upside. I think the Carl Lawton will suit their system. And Kai O'Donnell, I've heard the name. Look forward to seeing what we can see from him. But I think this has got upside, these games here. I think this has got upside. And then the losses, Finifiwiaki, oh jeez, those ads are killing me. Kulukefu Finifiwiaki is decent enough. Chad Townsend, it was time to go. And Jake Granville, it was time to go, but as a club legend, man. Makes sense, and I would say it makes sense. I would say that these are all decent enough. I would say these are all... I actually prefer these gains and losses to the collective gains and losses from 2024, despite the fact that 2024 was fine. I think that overall, there's bigger players leaving here, in my personal opinion, but it's also understandable and makes sense as to why those bigger players are leaving. It is also completely understandable there. So I think the Cowboys are doing the right things. I think the Cowboys are making the right things here. They're doing at least somewhat of the right things in the from 2024 to 2025, 2023 to 2024. Their development, I personally believe, needs some work with this because I just haven't heard enough about them. And their contract situation gives them space to, move, chop and change, but also keep that real solid core of their big-time players. It gives them a lot of opportunity here. So I think there is excitement. I think the Cowboys can... let's move this up to round 27. I think the Cowboys can maintain this, but they still are a team that need to fix their defense, or there is a chance they go back down here next year into that 11-12 positioning, because all of these teams, all of them, have positives. And I tell you what, I did my Raiders review. I'm actually quite excited about them next year. Not so much excited about them. They'll be up and down. I do think they'll be better. Maybe. Depends on their halfway situation. I am confident they'll be better, but I'm a Titans fan, so you do have to remember that. They'll definitely be better. They'll definitely be better. And they'll definitely be better. So all these teams up here in the top 8. Am I saying the Tigers can make the 8? Not necessarily. I'm just saying that all these teams down here, below them, the Bulldogs could definitely be better if they fix their attack. Manly could also be above them. And the Knights, if they can fix their attack, they could also be better. So the Cowboys, any team in the top 8 whose name isn't the Panthers or the Storm, because the Roosters have their issues that we'll talk about on their season review. But any team in the top 8, I don't believe is safe besides these two teams next year. I don't think that any team in the top 8 is safe. I would actually say these guys are very safe too, based on their signing of Adam Fanua-Blake. But we'll do their season review later on. But the point is that the Cowboys need to fix this. Otherwise, there is absolutely... Because defense can work around that. So all these teams down here, if they're smart enough, will be able to figure out a way to defend this. This is the most important aspect of winning premiership. And like I say, throughout these season reviews, it's all good if you want to continue to be a 5th place team and be a part of the conversation and get bounced out first week, second week, whatever. But you realistically should be wanting to be a preliminary final or a grand final. Because if you're in the prelim, it means you can win a grand final. Because you're in the top 4 teams. Simple as that. So a lot of interesting things to happen here for the Cowboys. Biggest off-season thing is to absolutely slap down that defense and just fix that. Try to prevent the fluctuation. Try to get that consistency. Every team has an issue with consistency except for kind of these two guys, and mainly this one here in the Melbourne Storm. Every team will have consistency issues, but you have to limit it. You have to limit it because although they finish in 5th, they were just consistently inconsistent. Not as bad as this Dragons team. Go and have a look at that Dragons review. They're the most inconsistent team on the planet. Cowboys are a good team. Cowboys have a good work ethic. Cowboys are a tough team. They just need to really come together as a collective. But the concerns as well is that they are going in a direction that is unknown. They are. Because I believe they want to be a Raiders and Knights on an attacking side. Alright, I believe that. Where they want to be that real tough, grindy, massive hit kind of team with the heavy attack of Scotty Drinkwater, Tommy Dearden, these kind of real spruces, yeah? However, The contract situation shows that they do have a lot of room to change, which means that they need to get the right players in, which is obvious. But it comes down to who they get in, if they suit the system, and it will show to you if Todd Payten is actually a great coach. Because he hasn't proven it just yet. Prelim in 2022, that's great. Can't hold on to that forever. Last year failed. This year was upside mediocre. Upside mediocre. Next year, if they miss the 8 again, my question to you, is Todd Payten still confirmed as a good coach for you? I'm not saying the Cowboys sack him at all. That's not at all. He'll definitely be there next year, and he'll definitely be there in 2026. Don't get me wrong on that. But there'll be massive worried notions and concerned notions if the Cowboys cannot fix this fluctuation, because the fluctuation is what's killing you. The fluctuation is what's slapping you down. But there we go, guys. Definitely some positives. Definitely some confidence building there. But also, there is negatives and there is concerns. If you guys agree, disagree, slightly disagree, please jump into the comment section. Let me know exactly what you're thinking. I would love to know exactly what you think about this Cowboys team. If you think I'm a muppet, sure, go for it. But I'm being honest here, man. Like, I've gone through all these reviews, and I'm trying to be as honest as I possibly can from what I see. But that doesn't mean that I'm right. You know, you guys can have your opinions as well. Take my opinion, take your opinion, take the NRL consensus opinion, and kind of piece it all together and see what you believe. Right? But guys, I appreciate you for tuning in. Obviously, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. I haven't seen who's got knocked out between the Roosters and Manly just yet, so I can't tell you who's going to be the next season review. But obviously that will be coming out very, very soon. But you've got plenty of season reviews to go and have a look at if you have not already. But alright, guys, like I said, thumbs up, subscribe. Appreciate you as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya!